Hi, and thank you for joining us today with our live webinar, Knowledge Transfer, Why It's Important and How to Achieve It. We just quickly going to give you an overview, and we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you may be located today. So in this webinar, we're going to actually focus a little bit on culture as a product and how you've learned to manage problems. And then we're also going to go into why it's important to capture knowledge from workers before they leave, utilizing a EAM or enterprise asset management system or a software. If we put it to CMMS as well, computerized maintenance management software, where we're going to actually look about analyzing and digitizing. We're going to give a summary and then also have a questions and answers session. So you can use your panel and then just ask your questions along the way. So we'll cover those as we move forward. You'll also see in the handout section, there is 2 documents, knowledge transfer form and a knowledge loss risk assessment that you can use. It's a kind of a template just to guide you. If you don't know where to start, if you go through this webinar with Harry and then you want some more information or you need a starting point, that would be great for you to do so. Use those handouts and have a look at that. Then I'm going to introduce you to our presenter, Harry Copel. He's the Vice President of our Business Development at Eagle Technology. He's going to go through this, a very knowledgeable man that has been working in various industries. So Harry, thank you for taking the time to do this webinar. Very insightful.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and welcome to our guest today. So we'll start with this quote from Benjamin Franklin: "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Think about that as we go forward. And I originally told Barbara that we should target this as, what do we do when Harry leaves, right? Barbara said I'm knowledgeable. She's exaggerating a little bit, but let's think about this. Your Harrys possess knowledge. You've taught them how to do the job. They maybe have been there longer than you. They've assimilated information over time and experience, and they possess information that's critical to the operation of your organization. And, you know, we're focusing today on the maintenance component, but that's true of all roles. And we deal with industries from manufacturing to distribution to production of medications and auto parts and all sorts of different industries. And regardless of the industry, when Harry leaves, there's a gap. And, you know, we can laugh and say, well, it's like taking your finger out of water. But the reality is that there's knowledge that has left the organization potentially. So what do you do with that? How do you capture that, right? Today, we have all sorts of complex processes in place, whether we're an injection molding plant or a lighting factory or a food processing plant, or we produce beverages or auto parts or whatever it is. We have very complex operations going on, and the people who maintain our production facilities have a lot of knowledge and experience that are associated with perhaps custom machinery that we have or specific models of machinery that we run. And they know, based on our plant, our location, and the age of our equipment and everything, you know, the customers we run in, you know, product for, they know a lot about what it takes to maintain the equipment. So, you know, when somebody leaves at a, you know, that's been at the organization for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they take common knowledge with them. Now, how common is that knowledge, however? It may be knowledge that they only possess because it's not written down. You know, the instructions might be maintain the machine. Well, Joe or Pete or Harry know, or Sally know how to maintain that piece of equipment, right? And when they leave, who is left in their place to teach them how to do that? When Harry is the lead person, when Harry is the manager and they leave, they retire, right? And we've known they might be leaving for quite a while. We knew that Sally or Harry or Pete or Sam were going to be 65. They announced 6 months ago that they're 8 months ago that they're going to retire this year. How do we capture the knowledge of what are they really doing day to day, right? They kept everything running smoothly. They kept everything running well. And now we're faced with the dilemma that, hey, they're leaving. So we look at the complexity of our operations, the layout, the complexity of the equipment, and we ask ourselves, how do we possibly know in detail how to fix this, or what maintenance was required on this piece of equipment, or what did they really do to maintain it, right? Because the manufacturer's specification says X, but in our environment or in our case, and based on the age of our machine, we also did Y, Z, and AB. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do you capture that information. So you have a culture in your organization, and culture is a product of how you have learned to manage problems, right? You look at these two guys and you look at this cartoon and say, yeah, that's funny. That has nothing to do with our organization. Well, the reality is it does. You know, each corporation's or plant's culture is unique and individual. I've worked with companies that have 5 plants. I've worked with companies that have 2 plants. I've worked with companies that have 30 plants. And those plants, regardless of how consistent they try to be, are unique because of the individuals that are working there. Culture gets started a long time ago, and culture doesn't change easily, right? Culture takes time to change. So when Harry or Sally leave the company, you have a gap that now somebody will teach the new person how to do something, right? Well, Harry did it one way, and the person that's going to be teaching doesn't really agree with 100% of what Harry did or Sally did. So they say, well, you know, they did it this way, but here's how I would do it if I were you. Well, now that new person says, oh, okay, I'll do it that way because that's what the boss or person told me how to do it. Well, all of a sudden, that slowly changes how things get done, right? How processes take place. And it's critical that you understand that that little bit of a change may ultimately affect the production, the operation, the uptime, but you don't know because you don't have the exact process that Harry or Sally used documented anywhere, right? So the variation it could be relatively minor, but yet could cause a problem that you don't understand why it's occurring. Think about that. So the point of today's presentation is that it's really important to capture knowledge from people before they leave your organization. A simple example, you've got a process to maintain a piece of equipment, right? There are a lot of detailed steps that go into that process. If your knowledge level or your captured data says maintain this piece of equipment per the manufacturer's specifications, that may or may not be exactly what is happening on a day-to-day basis, because the person that's doing that may have learned over the years that they need to modify that process slightly based on air quality, based on the heat in the facility, based on the coolness of the facility. You know, you might maintain a piece of equipment one way when it's 90 degrees outside and your plant isn't air conditioned, and you might do something totally different when it's 30 below outside and you're trying to maintain that piece of equipment. So what was the exact process that the person that's been there for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years was using in order to maintain that piece of equipment? So you need to capture that data. You need to evaluate it, right? And then it needs to be shared. And the sharing process is what is eliminated if it's not captured. In the industry, I've been in the industry 115 years now, technology. We had a saying, garbage in, garbage out, and that's still true. Nothing has changed, although our industry has changed radically in the years that I've been in the technology sector. The adage of garbage in, garbage out hasn't changed. So you have to analyze the information that you have. When you've captured it, where do you capture it? Well, we think that your maintenance solution, your maintenance software, is the ideal place to capture the detail of the tasks. Today, we partner with companies like Brady for their Link 360 lockout tagout. We have the ability to have very, very detailed tasks in place in our systems. Those tasks are step by step. What do you do? How do you do it? Does it take one person or two people? It allows you to have the knowledge that's in Harry or Sally's head captured in order to have a new person do that process step by step. I'm working with one client right now where all of the plants have, they have over 20 plants, have all the same equipment, same models, makes, and everything. So the tasks that get very detailed and maintain these are easily replicated. But I've warned the client, and they're well aware, that the age of the equipment, the processes that the equipment are related to could affect the steps in the proper maintenance for that plant. So they're setting up a template for the specific pieces of equipment, but as specific locations require modifications, or if somebody says, you know, I used to do that, but I found it's more effective to do this, they're going to gather that knowledge into a common database and be able to see the effect or analyze that information to make sure that they don't have garbage in, garbage out. So we believe that utilizing your enterprise asset management and maintenance management software is the ideal place to digitize or capture the information of your employees in detail before they leave. You have time to do it now, but the time to collect that information is now, not 6 months before they start to leave, because at that point in time, their attitude, their time availability, and everything else gets reduced, right? So today's the day to start. Capture the details of what your employees are doing and how they're doing it, step by step. It includes the most minute information that you can possibly extract from the individual. The sequence of what they do is as critical as what they're doing, right? So making sure that you've captured the information in a logical form so that even a new person would have enough information to be able to do whatever that process is without having to ever have done it before, right? And that every step along the way gets covered, including the safety steps. So knowledge has a beginning, Every day we begin to learn more, but it doesn't have an end, and we continue to learn. It's important for us to be able to capture information from our employees in a logical, detailed format. And like I repeat again, the logical place to do that in your maintenance system is in your detail of your tasks related to the specific machines, the cycles that get covered, and the most minute steps, including all of the safety before and after, that are documented in the tasks. So in summary, what are you going to do when Harry leaves? It's too late. You have to start thinking about and gathering that knowledge today. You have to start using a comprehensive electronic form. We've got 2 handouts available for you attending today so that you're able to use them as a template, gather that information, and use it going forward. If you have any questions at this point in time, you can enter them into the question box, and Barbara will read them, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. If not, this session has been recorded. You'll be able to share it with other people, and we'd be happy at any point in time to show you in detail the types of information that we're working with clients to capture the detail of what does Harry really do. So here's our
So you'll notice that this was a little bit of a shorter session. It's exactly that. We wanted to see if we also, if there's, sometimes we've had time where we had these webinars where people actually did have a lot of questions and we weren't able to get to them because it's so specific. So feel free right now, take the opportunity. If you actually right now wondering how you're supposed to do something, you're in a department, maintenance specifically, that you actually, where do you start? How do you start that? Pop in a question. Let's see if we can help you answer some questions. We're here right now. Use this time to just get to know a little bit more about knowledge transfer, specifically when it comes to an industry like yours. Harry, we have one question here. You mentioned knowledge transfer within a CMMS system. How do you know which role is important to capture that knowledge?
I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Sure. You mentioned the knowledge transfer within a CMMS system. How do you know which role is really important? Basically, how do you capture that? How do you capture that knowledge? Like if you, I think I'm going to jump in a little bit here and just help you. We do have, if you look at the handouts, there's a knowledge transfer, there's a knowledge transfer form, and there's a knowledge loss risk assessment. Now, if you look at the knowledge risk loss assessment, you'd actually see that it does give you a breakdown of, you can allocate a certain role and then say this is how it, and it gives you a structure that you can actually rate it in, and then it will give you the risk of losing that person, and if it's a low risk or a high risk, and then the action you have to take. Sorry, I took your question, but that is a good form to actually do look at some of those roles if you define that. And then Harry, can you maybe just quickly give a little bit more explanation of how a role would capture data? Like we had that incident where if you look at the HVAC in the hospital, that they didn't know one of the units were in a cupboard, the person left. Give that as an example, that would work.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Barbara. We had a client a few years back that had been using our system for a number of years. They'd been a long-time client, but they didn't use the system to its fullest extent in terms of identifying all of the specific pieces of equipment that needed maintenance. They just said, clean the air filters, right? Well, as hospitals get built, they keep adding on and they keep adding on. Somehow along the way, somebody left and there was a unit in a closet that nobody knew about except the person who left. And as a result, literally years went by until they had major problems, and they uncovered the fact that there was this unit in a closet that nobody ever went in, that the filter had never been changed. And it literally was caked to the point where it wasn't functioning anymore. In fact, it was detrimental to the air instead of helping it. So identifying who, not only where in assets are in the system, but who's supposed to maintain them, when they get maintained, using your electronic maintenance software to identify the most detailed information about locations and cycles of changing and parts that are needed and things like that are all pieces of knowledge that your people possess that may or may not be documented. So you really need to look at what is really documented in our systems, right? I've had people that tell me, well, we only care about preventive maintenance and that's all we put in our system. Well, the break fix stuff is really the information on that your technicians possess on why did it break, why is it breaking, and what do you do to fix it? And if you're not gathering that information, who's going to know when they leave? So it's critical to be able to look at what information do I have? And again, these templates, don't look at the lowest level technician as not being significant, because if they've been there 5 years, 10 years, they possess knowledge that nobody else may have. Any other questions?
Yeah. Here's one more. How would the new person access the person leaving's data within a system like yours?
Well, the detail of the tasks and the cycles, what they worked on and everything else should be contained in the task detail and the closed work order information. So they should be able to easily access any information about what was done on a piece of equipment, when it was done, what was done to resolve it, the problem if it existed, and what PMs are scheduled, and what are the detailed steps of doing a preventive maintenance, and what cycles should this be done based on the knowledge that the system can possess from other people. If you have this information, it becomes easier for somebody to step in and continue doing the job when Harry retires or Sally retires or they leave, allowing you to have continuity. And we know that right now in a situation where unemployment is low around the country, it's easy for people to just decide, hey, this company is going to offer me more money. It's closer to home, or I can work on first shift instead of second or third. And we can all too easily lose somebody that is critical and has critical knowledge about our operation. So don't wait till somebody announces that they're leaving to gather that data. Like the adage that we showed you earlier, knowledge has a beginning, but it doesn't have an end. The time is now to start collecting that detailed information.
Here's another one. Would you be able to share things like contractor details? Do you capture things instead of just giving them a paper with the details on it?
I'm not sure what.
I think what they're asking is in the sense of maybe just explain how our contractors and vendors are set up in our system, how they can actually get access to that instead of having a file where you get all the details if you need something, or a vendor. I think it's more specific to vendors probably too.
Yeah, okay. And again, to keep it more generic, it depends on how your software works, but in our solution, we're able to put a lot of details into the tasks themselves, and we're able to capture notes from work orders history, and put resolution of what caused problems and things like that, so that history information and the active tasks and the scheduling are all pretty ongoing.
We're going to give it one more minute. If there is another question, if you have a question that you want to add to these ones that we just covered, please feel free to fill in the questions, and then we'll quickly see if we can answer those before our time runs out.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for their time. Again, this is intended to stimulate your thoughts about the issue. If you have questions, you can contact us or ideas. But again, just acknowledging that the information that your people possess is critical to the ongoing success of your organization is a starting point. And acknowledging that you need some way to collect that information in enough detail that if you've never done the job before, you would have the steps, the processes, the schedules, and so forth to do it, and do it effectively, is a good start in your decision to move forward and understand the criticality of knowing what to do when Harry leaves. So thank you very, very much for your time today.
Thank you for your time too, Harry. We'll be sending you an email. You can expect one with the contact details of Harry. If you have any other questions regarding to CMMS and knowledge transfer, he might even be able to give you a few ideas on setting up your CMMS team, or how to get started to capture the data, and making sure that when Harry leaves, you already have all the history in place to help Sally. But what I wanted to do too is just thank you for your time, and an email will be sent out with the recording. If you have anything, if you need the handouts again, feel free to email us. We'll get in touch with you. Thank you.